Right, so this is ninth lit. We're finishing up our PowerPoint with about the Canterbury Tales, and we have this slide. I just want to point out that because the Canterbury Tales is a collection of 24 stories, no story is exactly the same kind. So there's at least one romance told by the knight. There's a tableau told by the miller. There's a beast epic told by the nun's priest. There's a classical legend, I don't remember who tells that. There's a saint's life. So you get a variety of different kinds of stories. Since you have this, I'll move on.
Oh, right, you said like the channel type of?
Yeah, this is your entire cable network. I mean, all the networks. Hey guys, listen, it's not just one network where you get all the same kinds of things. This is a variety. An exemplar, it's a story, yeah. Yeah, I'll get you one. I will get you a better. It's a story told by preachers.
Made that sound.
If there's a sermon here, there's a tragedy. We studied that term with Murder in Cathedral. There's a miracle of the Virgin. That was a type of story that was very popular. Yes.
What would be like the heading for this?
These are. Let me just go back a second. These are varieties of subjects and genres that you find in the table. All right, and so we're looking at is a miracle of the Virgin, which was a popular kind of story if you're Roman Catholic, and that would be a big part of your religious education is studying about Mary. I love this line. Dryden, who was I think he was a contemporary of Shakespeare, a couple hundred years later, said, "'Tis sufficient to say, according to the proverb, that here is God's plenty." And I think that's one of the things that makes it so popular for the last 700 years is that it's such a variety of stories. And you'll see that, and the three that I've chosen pretty short ones. And it also says almost all in with some proverb or other wisdom. Part of the contest that the host came up with the idea of having a contest. We got 55 miles we got to travel. It's going to be kind of boring riding these horses, just very slowly, maybe 12 miles a day. That's like walking 12 miles a day, probably not much faster. We got to do something to entertain ourselves. And so, but one of the criteria was that the stories had to end with a proverb or a lesson. So every story had to be educational. Even the Miller story, there had to be something that we learned from it. And so that's an aspect that you need to keep in mind.
Has Dr. Talbert written books?
I think he published his dissertation in the form of a book. I think that's what that is. To get a PhD, you have to have a thesis like the seniors do. Like you know what that is, and so you have to. It's usually multiple pages, 100 pages or so plus. So I think that's what he published. Dr. Betzel, who you'll have next year, I don't know if he published his, but he also did a dissertation to get a doctorate.
What do you write about?
What?
What do you write about? What did you what's the topic?
I don't know about I can't remember what Dr. Tower. Dr. Betzel wrote about T.S. Eliot, the writer of A Murder in Cathedral, and I don't remember what his thesis was, but that was the subject of
How do you
his
write 100 pages on
That's
something?
people who aren't good at
Oh my gosh.
Are you kidding? There are like biographies about many people that are way over.
I know.
This was not a biography, but it was.
But I'm just saying, you can't write it.
Like a
Yeah.
book.
You can write hundreds of papers, or hundreds of, things about a person.
Is being a writer like a stable career?
No.
Okay.
Unless we talked about that. Even one of the greatest writers ever, Chaucer, Dante, they spent their entire lives doing other jobs. Both of them worked in regular jobs, and they wrote on the side. Unless you're Harry Potter ladies, or those kinds of people. James Patterson, you ever go to a grocery store? Ever go to the convenient market down the street, the convenience store? His books will be there. He's written about 1,000 books. I mean, I don't know how he cranks them out. They're not great literature, but that's not what he's laughing all the way to the bank. You know, he's just making a lot of money.
Who is this, sorry?
James Patterson is the guy who writes detective mystery novels, and you see his books everywhere.
What are some of them?
I can't remember a single one. I mean, I've never read it.
He did one with like a president. Like you read
Yeah,
it
that's
for a
right, he
president.
did. I mean, I think he has writers that work for him, and, yeah, his name is on it, but he doesn't write every single
That
one.
is really cheap.
What do you
I mean,
think?
people love it, they'll buy it, they just see the name, they'll buy the name. You know, James Patterson, I know him, and I know some writers do that, they're just so big that they don't even write it. They just use their name to sell it. But they oversee it, they make the final decision. But I'm glad you're asking about writers, because, you know, you might be one. Being a good writer will help you no matter what field you're in. You will be looked to and say, does anybody know how to write well? And you'll probably say, yeah, well, I went to Caldwell, we learned how to write well. And, you know, you might get a job because of that. Writing well is still an important quality. All right, so this is the last slide. I want you to copy this down, because I want you to remember it. These are a couple of statements about the prologue, which is we're going to start with. It is the concise, I'm going to read it, you just write it word for word, verbatim. I'll read it and you can copy it down. It is a concise portrait of an entire nation. High and low, old and young, male and female, lay and clerical, learned and ignorant, rogue and righteous. That's what you get in the prologue. You get 30 characters that show rich people, poor people, young and old, male, female, educated, uneducated, religious, non-religious, nice, not nice. You get all those people described in the prologue. Another comment about it is the pilgrims are presented with stunning clarity, touched with nuance. You know what nuance is?
Like,
Yeah, isn't it like, I don't
I've
know.
heard that one before.
I feel like I know what it is, but I don't.
Yeah.
Is it kind of like a tone?
Yeah, nuance is what's implied instead of what's directly stated. Let me give you a better definition of it. What do they call it? A restaurant that has ambiance?
Oh, yeah, like
Ambience.
the
The-
vibe of the place.
The vibe. Very good. That's a good way to put it. Just the feeling you get when you go in. Nuance is kind of like that. Nuance, a shade of difference, a delicate variation, as in tone and meaning. So you mentioned tone, I believe, Huck. It's that sort of invisible, inaudible quality of something that the tone, the feeling. I think that's. And finally, they are the perennial progeny of men and women. What is progeny?
Like descendants.
So, descendants are progeny. You are progeny. You're somebody's progeny. You are your parents' progeny. They are your ancestors, or they are your. The children are the progeny. So you are your parents' progeny. And so when you look at the prologue, you get to see human beings that are not that different than you and me. And I like the second one, stunning clarity. These are real clear, but they're also nuanced. There are subtle differences between them. And there's no extremes. Beowulf is an extreme. Roland is an extreme. Charlemagne, Marsilian, Grendel, they are extreme. You don't see any of those kinds of people here. These are just regular people. Have you ever known anybody famous?
Like semi-famous.
Well, my point is, if you ever got to know these famous people, you'd realize, man, they're just kind of like me. They, what makes them famous, they do something well, but we put them on a pedestal, but even famous people are like us. They're not that different. They just do something well. Ken Jeong, is that his name? Who does all the voice and all those things. He went to Page High School. He was there when I was there. I didn't know him, I didn't teach him.
Oh, yes,
My
I
mom was
read
on
about
what-
that.
He went to Duke University, I forgive him for that. He became a medical doctor. So I think he is a certified medical doctor, which makes him respect him even more. But he's making his money doing, that stuff. He's a regular guy. Went to high school just like you did. I didn't teach him, but I could have.
Were you there when he went?
Yeah, I don't remember him. Here's a guy, Ken Jeong, man, he's gonna be really rich and famous. Nobody said that about him. We remember the guys who were at the top of the pecking order, the girls that were at the top of the pecking. What are they doing? I don't know, but Ken Jeong, he's outshone everybody in his graduating class. So, that's the way it is, yeah.
My mom said that she graduated with someone that's now a comedian who also went to Page. I don't know his name, but
In him,
did what?
we're not Ken Jeong.
I don't think so.
When was she there? I mean, I taught your,
Yeah,
She was around the time that my mom was there.
I could like ask her tonight what who that was, but I'm not sure.
the only other famous person was, what's his name? Danny Manning, who was the coach of Wake Forest University up till 2 years ago. He was the nicest guy you've ever met. He was a great person, national champion in basketball, All-American. He was the most famous person that I remember, athlete, yeah.
My dad lives in Los Angeles. He was next to me with Dr. Seuss.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, there's, a ordinary, normal guy, yeah.
My dad went to college, or not college, in high school in Texas with the son of the guy who owned the Dallas Cowboys at the time and the Rangers. They were teammates. He owned the Cowboys and the Rangers.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So my your cousin Richard lives in New York, and he's like good friends with Tom Brady's younger son.
That's cool. You remember the TV show, it had a guy named Screech on it, remember
Oh,
they?
Saved by the Bell.
Saved by the
I
Bell.
love that show so
Well,
much.
we had a guy my senior year, he went to school with us, his name was John Sanderford. He played on several of those episodes as Zach's father.
I know exactly, yeah.
And I remember driving him home one day from school, and I remember exactly where he lived. He was just an ordinary guy, ordinary neighborhood, lived over there near the, where Latham Park is, right behind, it used to be, what's the name of that place? What is that? Serving Park is kind of right on the edge of Irving Park. Just a regular house, and I didn't know him very well, but I took him home, and then I remember seeing him. I knew him immediately watching. It's not something I don't think we should desire. Most people don't want to be famous, but my point in bringing all that up is these are regular people, just like you and me. And my point was even famous people are regular people. They just think. Yeah.
So this is an epic, right?
This is not an epic.
Okay, that's what I was like.
This is a collection of stories. Remember, let me go back just a second.
But it's a poem.
It's the entire thing is a poem. All the stories are, remember we said a romance? That would be more like an epic, but epics have to be long. And we're gonna read something called The Nun's Priest Tale, which is a mock epic. It mocks and parodies what an epic is. Yes.
I could be wrong, but when we were talking about it earlier, I think you said when he passed away, so he gets to like finish all the connections and stuff.
That's right, that's right.
So are these connected in any way? shape,
Yeah,
or
remember
form?
editors put after, like 70 years after he died, it was finally printed, published, and editors have organized it. And you'll see how sometimes they logically and easily come together, and sometimes it's just an abrupt separation between one and the other. I'll give you some examples of that. So, this is it. If you'll get out in the last, say, 10, 15 minutes, let's just get started to show you what you're in for. So get out your questions for the prologue.
Mr. Hall,
Yeah.
do you have an extra copy of those questions?
That's totally fine, without their cover. Will we have vocabulary tests or quizzes?
We will,
Okay,
we'll do that later.
but we don't have to define these words yet, right?
No, if you want to get started with it, you're welcome.
Okay, yeah.
Rhetoric and. All right, let's go ahead and turn into the Canterbury Tales, the prologue. I don't want to forget this, so take a look at the bottom of your book and tell me the number that's on there. I need to
A9, or A9, like it says A.
A.
I have a weird sexual drawing eyes. So, yeah.
And then like after, you know, is that elective or is it?
Ian?
Do you mind, Tom?
I did. What is your book?
So I'll give this back. It's cheaper on Why did I think of that?
Oh, the Jimmy's.
Let me get us started. Turn to the beginning of the prologue, hey guys. Hey guys. All right, I'm going to start reading. I'll need your help eventually. We'll just kind of get into this. Let me get started. This is the translation of what you're memorizing. When in April the sweet showers fall and pierce the drought of March to the root, and all the veins are bathed in liquor of such power as brings about the engendering of the flower. when also Zephyrus, that is a name for the west wind, I think it is. It's a balmy kind of wind, not a winter wind. When Zephyrus, eke with his sweet breath, exhales in air in every grove and heath upon the tender shoots, and the young sun, his half course in the sound of the ram is run. That's a reference to the seasons, what season it is, and also the what do you call it, the zodiac. And the small fowls are making melody that sleep away the night with open eye. So nature pricks them, and their heart engages. Then people long to go on pilgrimages, and palmers, those are pilgrims, also to seek the stranger strands of far-off saints, hallowed in sundry lands, and especially from every shire's end, that recognize the Hobbit, the Shire, every shire's end of England, down to Canterbury they wend, to seek the holy blissful martyr, that's Thomas Becket, quick to give his help to them when they were sick. So the idea was if you went to a shrine, a place where a martyr died, maybe being in that presence could heal you. People have done that before. All right, so it happened in that season. What season is it?
The ram, the sign of the ram. Oh wait, sorry, springish?
When in April, so it is spring. So it happened in that season that one day in Southwark, at the Tabard, this happens to be an inn, the Tabard, as I lay ready to go on pilgrimage and start for Canterbury, most devout at heart, at night there came into that hostelry some 29 in a company of sundry folks happening then to fall in fellowship. And they were pilgrims all that towards Canterbury meant to ride. The rooms and stables in the inn were wide. They made us easy, all was of the best, and briefly when the sun had gone to rest, I'd spoken to them all upon the trip, and soon was one with them in fellowship, pledged to rise early and take the way to Canterbury, as you heard me say. Let me keep reading. But nonetheless, while I have time and space before my story takes a further pace, it seems a reasonable thing to say what their condition was, the full array of each of them as it appeared to me, according to profession and degree, what apparel they were riding in. And at a night, therefore, I will begin. So he's going to give us the description of most of the 30 pilgrims, or actually 29 plus him. He wouldn't describe himself. So there are 29 other pilgrims, and he's about to describe them. He doesn't actually describe every single one, but he describes about 23, 24 out of the 29. And he starts with the night. So, and at a night, I therefore will begin. There was a knight, a most distinguished man, who from the day on which he first began to ride abroad, had followed chivalry, truth, honor, generousness, and courtesy. He had done nobly in his sovereign's war, and ridden into battle, no man more, as well in Christian as in heathen places, and ever honored for his noble graces. So let's look at some of the questions. Who is speaking? If I ever ask you the question, who is the narrator of the story?
Oh, is it Chaucer?
It's Chaucer himself. So just like Dante places himself into the story.
Yeah, it's so funny, because it's weird, because he's writing the story and telling the story, but from
First person.
perspective, he's saying the pilgrim, but the pilgrim is him. It's
Although he said, I'd spoken to them, so he does refer to himself in the first person often.
oh, right, yeah.
Okay, when and where did the pilgrims begin?
He gives like the introduction to each canto, where he says the pilgrim.
Oh, we're talking about Dante now? Or?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Okay,
I
oh,
thought-
yes.
Sorry. Never mind, back to
No,
the book we're actually.
no, that's fine. All right, so when and where does the pilgrimage begin?
Oh, London. I know you said that.
Yes, London,
Right.
at an inn. An inn is a place where you can eat and sleep. So it's called Southwark. When does it begin?
Oh, in April, or
Right.
yeah, April, spring, whatever you want.
That's right.
In the spring.
How many programs went? Plus Dante, or, you're right, Charles. So 30. They're actually, okay, let's get this straight. There are gonna be 30 pilgrims, including Dante. But then there's gonna be an additional person called the host. And he is gonna be the 31st person, but he is not a pilgrim. He is a tour guide. Chris, you're getting all this? You're writing these down, right? Number 4, explain the contest that the host proposes. What will the prize be? That's a bad location for that. That should be, we don't know that until the very end of the prologue. But let me go ahead and tell you the answer. So we'll forget to come back to that. Explain the contest. You already know that. Remember, what's the contest going to be?
They're supposed to be walking out from there to, I don't even know.
Canterbury.
Canterbury, in over the matter of how many days?
It'll take them 4 days to get there. But what's the contest? They're going to be bored. So what are they going to do to allay their boredom?
Entertaining.
By doing what?
Telling stories.
Telling stories. So that's the contest. Tell a story, actually tell 4 stories. And the prize will be, it's all of this over a meal. Whoever they decide, and the host is gonna make the decision who wins. They're
Who
gonna
ends up
provide
winning?
him.
Who ends up winning the meal?
Of course, he never finished it. He never finished the book, so we don't know.
Oh, darn it, that's
Yeah.
a shame.
But it's kind of a little thing considering how great the book is, that this is
Yeah.
all about a meal. All right, what virtues, we start with the knight. He also happens to be the first story. But anyway, what virtues did the knight follow? It look like there are 5 of them.
Maybe back to the meal thing, maybe we have to be the judges of who wins the meal.
Oh, yeah, ultimately, yes.
No.
Yeah. All right, notice
let's see.
it's-
Distinguished man, he first began to ride abroad, chivalry, truth, honor, generous, he's courteous, generous, honorable, chivalrous.
Those 5, yes.
Yeah.
Those are the virtues. So that tells you a lot about the knight. Oh, by the way, I should have asked you this question. I should be on here.
Chivalry, truth, honor, generousness, and courtesy.
What are the 3 things Dante is going to tell? Sorry, it's going to take me a while. Chaucer is going to tell us about each pilgrim. There are 3 things that he said he was going to tell us about each pilgrim. What are they? Their profession. In fact, we don't know the names of many of them. We're just told their job. When you get to be my age, and it won't take that long, it won't even be that late, but when you get men, guys particularly, when you meet another man and you're out of college and you're working, one of the first things you're going to ask that person, what do you do? And that's how you'll say it. What do you do? Oh, I'm a doctor. What do you do? I'm an accountant. I own a business. That's what he's going to tell us. Chaucer is going to tell us what each pilgrim does. And they're known by their jobs. Let's finish with this. The other thing is their degree, their status in society. And you'll get that by the job. The job carries the status. And finally, interestingly enough, he's going to tell us what they were wearing. So almost every person, we get a description of their clothes. All right? Those are not unimportant things, but they're not the most important. So we will see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yes, don't forget to be reading, and tomorrow, we didn't get to it today, but be working on those first 4 lines so that you won't be completely feel lost. Yes, I do want them back when we're done. I did.
Will we share them back the books?
What?
Do we give you back the books or?
When we're done. Yeah, you'll keep them throughout the unit. But at the end, you get to-
people, and then we recite
We won't do it alone during the class. Let me show you, I was gonna show you your chat.
Repeat on your history test.
I'm in your history.
I know mine.
It's a one. It's a one.
Let me give you the grade, I'll show it to you. I thought it was pretty good. Oh, the video is still going. If you check, okay.